Alright, guys, I thought we'd wrap up this year by looking at all the books I've read this year. So, let's take a look at that. Hey guys, it is me, the Emerald Sword, and welcome back to another video where today, as I just said, we will be looking at all the books I have read this year and basically kind of what I thought about them. So, I will answer it in a second when I get to the books, but I just want you to ask yourself, how many books did I read this year, and which ones were they? That's the question I want you to ask yourself. But, yeah, so, short intro's out of the way, let's get to the books. Alrighty, guys, I am joining you on the floor now, so that we can take a look at all my books that I have read this year. And you're probably wondering, how many books are there? Did you figure out the correct number? There are 16 books in this pile right here, and that's quite a lot. And I'm sure you guys can already see some, so let's just get right ahead on with this. So, for January and into February, I read Cujo. Now, Cujo, it is definitely not my favorite book. And, I mean, it's fine. It's fine, but this is when I started to read along with an audiobook. Yeah, I did audiobook only for about the first half of it, and then I just could not, pay attention to it and stuff. So, I think that had I reread it, but with the full book, this time I might enjoy it more, but for right now, it's not my favorite. And then February was Salem's Lot. Now, Salem's Lot, it's a bit of a bigger book, and it's only Stephen King's second book that he ever published, but Salem's Lot is quite a good one. And yeah, it's about vampires, and Salem's Lot is not about the Salem witch trials, just so you know. It is about vampires in Jerusalem's Lot, Maine, but it was shortened to Salem's Lot. And yeah, I enjoyed this one quite a bit more than I did Cujo. And I am really excited for the movie to come out, whenever that is. So, yeah. And then March, we have Pet Sematary. So, yeah, I'm doing all the classics this year, but as you'll see, it gets more layered than that. But yeah, Pet Sematary, this is rightfully called Stephen King's darkest book for good reason. And yeah, basically it's about death and how people deal with death. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. In fact, it was my record for reading a chapter book for a long time. I read it in 8 days. And yeah, overall it's a really good book. And I liked the first 2 movies. And then I saw the remake, and then I was like, eh. And then Bloodlines just came out a couple months ago as I'm recording this, and I'm like, yeah. So, yeah. I like the book in the first movie and the second movie, but the last 2 movies, eh. Alright, so moving on. April to May was The Green Mile. Yeah, The Green Mile was really good. And, yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite Stephen King books. I don't know quite exactly where it ranks among the books I've read so far, but it's certainly one of my favorites. It's so good. It takes place in a, I guess, racially challenged time where there's a lot of racism going on, and of course, after I read it, I saw the movie, and the movie's fantastic. It follows the book so well, and it's like, wow, I was just impressed by this book. It is a little long. It took me longer to read than I wanted to. But yeah, it is just so good, and I highly recommend it. Anyway, so while I was reading The Green Mile, I read this, which is The Lord of the Flies, which is very beat up. And and I know you're probably like, but you've been reading a lot of Stephen King. Why are you reading Lord of the Flies? Well, you see, until last May, I was in high school. So yeah, that was basically just the book I read for my English class in high school. Anyway, it's fine. It's pretty dark. It's about boys who get stranded on an island and turn on each other. and it's like about like the fall of man or whatever, or like how people become divided in certain situations. Anyway, it's a perfectly fine book, but it's certainly not like what I've been reading as of late. All right, switching hands because my other arm is getting tired. And so, before I graduated high school, I reread Carrie. Now, this was the first Stephen King book I reread. It is the first Stephen King book I ever read, and it's also my favorite Stephen King book. Yeah, a lot of firsts and favorites going on. Anyway, yeah, Carrie, still amazing. Watch my review for it. And since next year, April 5th, 2024, is the 50th anniversary of Carrie. So I will be reading it for that one day only for the 50th anniversary. But yeah, if you want to know my thoughts more about it, watch the review. And so then the next book is a beast. It is It. And now I did read It before. This is another reread. Basically what happens is that when I read it the first time, I kind of like didn't pay attention. Same thing with Cujo and all that. And yeah, overall I really liked it. Rereading it was definitely the right choice. I got all the information down this time. There's still that one scene in there that is rightfully so controversial. But yeah, other than that, a really solid read. And so, so June was Gerald's Game. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention it was like late May into June. It's fine. But anyway, the book for June was Gerald's Game. Now, Gerald's Game is a bit of a dirty book, as they say. Basically, this girl named Jessie, her husband handcuffs her to a bed for certain bedroom shenanigans, and she kicks him, and he has a heart attack and dies. And so throughout the book, she's like, well, dang it, now I'm handcuffed to this bed. And so the book takes place over the course of like 2 days, I believe. And then the way she gets out of the handcuffs is just actually like disgusting. It's like if you want to know, either read the book or watch the movie. They both go the same way, and my gosh, it's horrifying. Anyway, switching hands again. Number 12, and the book for July was Fairy Tale, which was at the time Stephen King's newest book. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I did not love Fairy Tale. It's basically like just solid fantasy and nothing but solid fantasy. And back in the day, I used to read Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, so I was really into fantasy back in the day, but now I just cannot do it at all. The book just really bored me, and I'm interested to see what they're doing with the movie. I heard that a movie was confirmed. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with that, but the book, while I still enjoyed the book after a while, it certainly has a slow start, and it's just a slow book. So, moving on to number 13, the next book of July through August, I believe, is Under the Dome. Now, as you can see, Under the Dome is a big book. Like, that's a meaty book. And Under the Dome is basically a dome falls in on a city and completely blocks it off from the rest of the world. And it's basically what happens when people are put in a dire situation that they can't escape from. So it's basically about the fall of man, kind of like Lord of the Flies. And yeah, so it's basically about what happens in certain situations. What's the power dynamic there? And yeah, the book was really good, and as it says, a CBS television series. I watched the show. Season 1 was inaccurate, but pretty good. Half of Season 2 was interesting, and then the later half of Season 2 and all of Season 3 was just really bad. So, I wouldn't really recommend the show. And those were the books. Which ones did you get correct? The ones you couldn't see, by the way. How many of those did you get correct, and how many did you think there were? Were you correct? Let me know. But anyway, guys, I'd like to thank you for yet another great year on YouTube. I have not been growing as of late, but I hope that 2024 we can really start growing together as a channel. And yeah, I cannot wait. And next year I will be reading some even more famous books. So yeah, I hope you guys are interested in that. And I will see you guys next year.